Okay, good evening and welcome to the August 3rd regular city council meeting. And we'll start off by explaining, I did hear some conversation in the audience. We did cancel our study session on the parking report, downtown parking report, due to an absence. Apologize for any inconvenience. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Beauchamp.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call the roll.
Beauchamp.
here.
Goodlow.
Here.
Lopez.
Here.
Elliott.
Here.
Miller. Here. Palmer.
Here.
Okay, we have no proclamations, awards, or recognitions, and we move to approval of the agenda, before which anybody in the audience wish to... We have a previous excused absence for Councilmember Thompson. It's already approved. So before we move to approval of the agenda, is there anybody who wishes to take an item off of consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda? Okay, hearing none, I'll take motion for approval of the agenda.
Motion for approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion second for approval of the agenda as presented. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye opposed. That motion passes. Item 5 is the consent agenda.
Motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye opposed. That motion passes. We don't have any petitions, protests, or communications. We are to item 7, which is public comment on non-agenda items. I will start into my little spiel here. Again, limited to 3 minutes. Topics are limited to items over which the council has control or concern city business. No discussion of any ballot measures or any candidate, and comments need to contribute to the orderly conduct of the meeting. And we will start by introducing yourself, city, county, city, identify as a city or a county resident or otherwise, whether you're speaking for yourself, a group, or both. And we will start, and then the topic that you wish to speak to. Mr. Keller, you've signed up to talk about the pool.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pat Kelleher, City of Ellensburg. Once again, I appreciate your attendance at the pool first meeting. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting. You know, it was a year ago I kind of started this. I started after somebody showed me a video of just water just streaming from the roof, and a bucket had been placed under there. And I go, no, that doesn't look right. And so, you know, start coming to me, hey, what's happening on this roof thing? And I missed a meeting last year, and boom, you passed a budget amendment and made everything for, and then we redid that. And so now I guess we're out on RFP maybe for somebody to look at the roof. Somebody looked at the roof in 2018. 2 years later, well, he did a destructive inspection, and 2 years later, I requested, hey, what's been spent on the roof? $13,000. $13,000 from the time we found that we had water penetration on the roof. Well, that's okay. The pool's good enough. The urinal, there's a urinal that's been out for 4 years. There's allegedly mold around the women's sink. That a person that's been going to it for 30 years, there's another woman that related to me that, oh, I ain't going back there. You just didn't. But that pool is good enough. That pool is rock solid. I've been using that pool, that same location for over 60 years. It's good enough. It's fine. Probably run a little different, but it's good enough. And the reason it's good enough is I happen to have a couple brothers. One's a state champion wrestler, and 3 of them were state champion football players, and 2 of them were state champion basketball players, and, well, one's got a national football ring. But, you know, sometimes you just got to humble them. So when I go to those award banquets, they don't have one of these. They don't have a gold medal. That's 8 and under butterfly. Now, you can practice football in the backyard like they did. You can wrestle in the downstairs living room unless Dad was home and you had to be kicked out to the backyard. You can play basketball down at Teeley's, but you need a pool to swim in. That's got to be provided by the community. In Yakima, they closed they're going to close their pool because of funding. Well, 6 schools use that pool. The community's got to provide the asset to get one of these. And so, every time I got to go, I just remember, hey, you don't have one of these. And, so I thank the community for providing the pool. The pool is good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelleher. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to address the council on a non-agenda item? And we don't have anybody signed up in advance, so thank you. We will move to item 8A, which is page 66 in the packet. Let me make sure I get the right. This is a public hearing that will be to consider vacating a city easement located between the Catherine Cottages and Radio Road. This would be the first reading of ordinance 4994. There will be an opportunity for public comment, but I have a script to read. Okay, so the purpose of this public hearing is for City Council to consider pertinent facts, applicable law, and make a final decision regarding the request to vacate a city easement located between Catherine Cottages and Radio Road. When you say final decision, it's only first reading. So this is not the final decision. This is the preliminary final decision. Good. Okay. The public hearing is now open. We ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. This is an open record hearing, which means everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk is recording the proceedings. I will recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by people via Zoom or over the phone, and we will deal with that if that happens. When you're invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address. Indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually, spokesperson for a certain group, or both. Speak slowly and clearly. One person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through council. The City Council seeks to conduct this hearing in a manner that is fair and unbiased in both appearance and fact. Therefore, I would ask council members the following questions. Does any member of the council have an interest in this property or issue?
No.
I too will say no. Will any member of the council obtain financial benefit or suffer financial loss as a result of the outcome of this meeting?
No.
I will answer no as well. Does any council member believe he or she cannot hear and consider this matter in a fair and objective manner?
No.
I answer no as well. Has any council member engaged in communication with opponents or proponents regarding this issue outside of a public hearing process?
I have. No.
No. I haven't.
Okay, and no for the rest of us. And so if so, you must place on the record the substance of your communication so that other interested parties may have the right at this hearing to rebut the substance of this communication.
I sent an email to Liz Scully and Stephen Greenfield regarding the easement. I'm expressing my concern on the impact for kids if there wasn't easy access from one neighborhood to the other, and expressing my opinion that one of the beautiful things about living in Ellensburg is it's safe enough the kids can play if they have reasonable access, and that I did visit the site, and I noted there's obstacles to the public sidewalk access for certain age kids. So if a 9-year-old wanted to play with another 9-year-old in the neighborhood from Catherine Park and Radio Hill, they would have to go along Vantage Highway and then cross Brick Road, that intersection, and which is an odd intersection and busy, or go to Vista and there's no sidewalks on Vista, and it's on a hill, so the sightline's limited. So anyway, I find it dangerous for younger kids, maybe not teenagers, to legitimately access the property without these easements. And so I asked if there was a way to get around that, either with the easement, relieving people's concerns about parking by maybe having an agreement with the rodeo board or KXLE, or could folks walk along the top of the cliff in the city right-of-way, road right-of-way, to the private road that is Viewpoint. And the neighbors were kind enough to discuss my proposal and respond that basically, no, none of those options work, because the easement is too narrow. If the city were to if it were a new development and the city wanted that easement, it would need to be 10 feet. The Habitat has said that they don't want to manage that, they still have the parking concerns, and the parking is not, would not be, they've already approached the rodeo board and KXLE. They're not, that would not be a permanent solution. And the Viewpoint Road does not go all the way to the city right-of-way. You would need an additional easement from a property owner at the end of Viewpoint, and that property owner is not willing to grant that. And basically, they think that the public access on the sidewalks to be built on Vantage Highway and et cetera are adequate. So, there, that is the essence of the communication, and the response is signed by Mr. and Mrs. Greenfield, Larry and Jennifer Whitman, Julie and Liam McCoy, Liz and Logan Scully, Dale McPherson and Deborah Wall, and Cheryl Lynn.
So question, do we get, anybody in the audience want one of these? This is the substance of the communication? Okay. But everybody's a no? Okay. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. Is any council member employed by a party which has direct or indirect interest in the property, the value of which would be affected by a decision in this manner?
No.
No.
I will answer no. Will any council member be employed by a party for which potential employment may be a result of this decision?
No.
I will answer no. Is there any council member, is any council member a member of or involved with an association, organization, whether formal or informal, which takes a position on this application?
No.
Yes. Board of Habitat for Humanity.
No, all good? Okay. Is any member of the council member's family, or, and actually, that's not really related to the easement.
Oh, benefit
so
to
there
the-
you go. Is any member of a council member's family or any person with which they have a social relationship, an advocate or witness who has provided oral or written testimony or argument in this manner, or will provide such testimony in this matter?
No.
No.
No. Is there anyone present at this time who objects to my participation or any council member's participations in these proceedings on the appearance of fairness? Nobody in the audience and nobody online. Okay, before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report?
Yes, good evening, council. City Attorney Chris Horner. You've got in front of you the public hearing and draft ordinance 4994 to vacate an easement that's located on the 5 feet on the east side of Lot 1 of Margaret's Addition plat. It's between the Catherine Cottages Affordable Housing Project that council approved in a letter of intent for back in May. And at that May 18, 2026 council meeting, council approved the letter of intent for Catherine Cottages and then directed this to be brought back to council for further discussion on whether to vacate the easement. That was done on June 15. Council had further discussion and wanted an opportunity to make a formal decision rather than just discussion. On July 6, council adopted resolution 2026-16 to set a public hearing. Based on that resolution, the city clerk posted notice of tonight's hearing in multiple places in the city, on the city's website, in the Daily Record, and actually on the easement itself. A sandwich board with tonight's public hearing was created and placed on the easement. So there's been lots of notice given to the public. The last thing I would say is there are still a couple of easements created by the plat. I've mentioned it several times, 10-foot easements. That's not the subject of tonight's public hearing. With that, I will, that's the end of my staff report.
Council, any questions from staff? Okay, hearing none, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak to this issue? Go ahead, come on up. Again, 3 minutes, introduce yourself. City, county, who you represent. Thank you.
I believe it's 5 minutes.
5 minutes? My bad.
Dale McPherson, 1306 Radio Road. I represent myself and my wife. In 1983, the city of Ellensburg petitioned my neighbor, Mrs. Hall, asking her to donate a 5-foot wide strip of her property to allow access from Radio Road neighborhood to the planned Catherine May Park, which was to border the south side of both our properties. Mrs. Hall was a kind elderly woman who agreed to this generous gift to the city. The city erected a chain link fence which created this 5-foot path between our two properties. The city had agreed to provide privacy slats in both chain link fences, as they did for Mrs. Hall's fence, but never did for ours. I wonder if Mrs. Hall were being asked today to give the city this strip of land to provide overflow parking and easy access to her front yard to a complete new neighborhood of as yet unknown people. I believe she might be much less inclined to do so. The city did no further development of this path. It remains uneven and sloped from my now neighbors, the Scullys, towards my lawn. This slope not only makes this pathway difficult for a wheelchair to travel and a potential liability, but it is also forcing rocks and gravel through my chain link fence onto my lawn and damaging my fence. Since the brief presence of Catherine May Park, there has been no effort by the city to control the weeds which grow unchecked in this pathway. This has left this responsibility to the Scullys and myself. Why have we had to spend our money and time to maintain a city property? Now, if the city decides to either keep ownership of this pathway or give it to Habitat for Humanity, will this pathway be developed and maintained for safe and effective travel? Will the pathway be lighted for safe travel in the dark? The history of this pathway so far indicates the answer to be no. I believe this decision would be of no benefit to any of us living on Radio Road and will have the potential for a very negative outcome, not only for the Scullys and the McPhersons, but also for anyone living close by. I can see where this could lead to bad feelings and even legal issues. Again, based on the past performance of developing and maintaining this property, is this something that Habitat for Humanity would even want to be involved with? I will finish my 3 minutes encouraging the council to give this land back to the Scullys, restoring the property as it originally was, and relieving the city of both the cost of development and maintenance of any potential future liability issues. I can see no benefit for our neighborhood to have quick, easy access to this new neighborhood's backyards and parking spaces. I wouldn't think the new neighborhood would be in favor of this either. I feel equally strong that I can see no benefit for giving this new neighborhood such quick, easy access to our properties or providing overflow parking in front of our houses. Thank you for considering our needs.
Anybody else in the audience wish to go ahead?
Stephen Greenfield, 6 Viewpoint Road. I'm speaking to the letter that we wrote, Councilwoman Lilquist, and just addressing a few points there. Mostly, I just want to assure the council that in taking this action, there won't be a terrible effect on this new Catherine Cottage development. Councilwoman Lilquist is absolutely right in her interest in defending the idea of connecting these neighborhoods. And she was kind enough to come out and look at the area and even innovate some really well thought through ideas, none of which actually work for a number of reasons. But I wanted to point out that we have looked at this connection between Catherine Cottages and the future Catherine Cottages and the neighborhood. And there's a route that none of us really had ever talked about. We had first examined going around towards Brick through the new Gateway 2 project that you guys are building. That's very well thought through and puts sidewalks on Vantage Highway. And that's a process that takes people up Brick Road to the crosswalk that Councilwoman Lilquist did raise some legitimate concerns as to whether very, very young children can cross that. Ultimately, it might need some flashing lights or, embedded in there. But there's another route that is interesting that we never really considered, which is your former Gateway 2 project, which is now, Gateway 3, which is connecting sidewalks from Fenning to Vista. If that still happens, you'll now have a complete sidewalk up into the Radio Hill area from either direction. And with that direction going from Catherine Cottages all the way up to Fenning and then up Fenning to Radio, there's no need to even cross a street, which is excellent. And depending on where these neighbors live, it might even be shorter than going the other direction. We don't know. So that's a route that I'd never thought about, and it really gives a lot of opportunity to connect those neighborhoods, perhaps not quite as close as the back door through the easement, but a safe route that the city has already invested in the design and the money to maybe put that together. So I just would reemphasize that we know that this easement could not be built today at 5 feet. It has numerous problems. It is, as our neighbors have pointed out, it's not something that it seems that anyone is interested in continuing. But we want you to know that the neighbors that are up there genuinely want to welcome our new neighbors. They mean a lot to us. We've talked about ways to do that, and we hope that they won't be isolated. One of the problems that we all realize is that this space, this property, was never really designed to be integrated into the Radio Hill neighborhood. Now, last thing I'll mention is that the Radio Hill neighborhood itself doesn't have sidewalks through most of the neighborhood. Radio Road is only partially sidewalked, and the streets that are north of it don't have sidewalks. So I think it's limited in terms of if we're going to send like kindergarten age or young elementary school kids up those paths by themselves. But just know that we do care, and we thank you for considering expunging or deleting this easement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenfield. Anybody else wish to speak?
Good evening. Liz Scully, 1304 East Radio Road. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting me talk for a few minutes. I am going to actually keep it pretty short and sweet. I think that I presented everything that I've really wanted to say in the past, but I just wanted to thank my neighbors and reiterate their points. I completely agree with them, and it seems that the community does as well around Radio Road. And I wanted everybody to understand, especially Mrs. Lowquist, that we really understand the desire for children in Catherine Park to be able to safely connect with the surrounding neighborhood. I want those kids to be able to come play in my yard as well. So definitely we want a connection. We just want to create the right connection. And I think that there are some good ideas that have been presented, and ideas that we can still work toward together. The Vista Road is a great opportunity, to put a sidewalk there. If it were a possibility to put the sidewalk on the other part of Brick, that would be so fantastic. But I'm sure there are many obstacles to that that I am not aware of either. I do like the idea of the blinking lights as well, because I very much agree, Councilmember Lowquist, that that could be a safer crossing for kids. And I hope we can come up with a better plan for them to connect. So thank you all so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else? Does staff have anything to add?
No.
You want to reiterate the point of clarification that we don't own the property, we never have owned the property. This is a vacation of an easement. The city doesn't own the property, we're just vacating the easement.
Correct. We're giving up an easement on someone else's property. That's the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council, the applicant was us. Do you have any questions of the applicant, staff, or public? This is for council. No. Before closing the public hearing, wish to advise everybody present that the council reserves the right to reopen this hearing for additional questions or take additional comments later tonight or at a continued hearing if needed. The public comment portion of this hearing is now closed, and council may begin its discussion and deliberation.
Mr. Mayor, I move to conduct a public, to approve the first reading of ordinance 4994, vacating a city easement located between Catherine Cottages and Radio Road.
Second.
We have a motion second for first reading ordinance 4994, which would vacate the easement located between Catherine Cottages and Radio Road. Discussion.
I'd like to make a comment. I'm going to support this motion, but I want to thank the neighbors on Radio Hill for their commitment to working and trying to integrate and be a community with Catherine Cottages folks, and I hope you'll follow through with that.
I also appreciate the neighbors and their willingness to talk to me about my ideas. As we move forward, I'm wondering if the city would maybe do an evaluation of crossing lights at Brick, not just for kids, but that seems like kind of a dangerous intersection for a lot of folks. And consider the disposition of the fence on Scully's property and whether the city might have an obligation to remove that if that's desired, since we erected it, apparently. That's all.
Are those proposed amendments to the motion?
No, just maybe put on the Public Works radar or
Okay, we'll deal with the motion that's on the table first.
I just would echo the same comments. Thank you to the neighbors for working with us on this, and thank you to staff, and especially thank you to Councilmember Locust for taking the time to go out and talk with our neighbors and learn a little bit more, and appreciate everyone's interest in this.
Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question?
We have to reopen the public hearing. Okay. Okay. So all those in favor of the motion to do first reading of ordinance 4994 as presented, no extra conditions, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to vacating a city easement located between Catherine Cottages and Radio Road.
Item 8B, page 75. I'll stick to my script a little better. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider adopting the city's 6-year transit development plan for years 2026 through 2031 and accepting the 2025 annual report and receive comments on those items. The public hearing is now open. We ask your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. If you wish to participate in the hearing, if you're doing it by Zoom or phone, we'll go through that. Just indicate with a hand up. You should begin by stating your name and address, indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually, spokesperson for a certain group, or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person can speak at a time. Your testimony must only address the matter under consideration in this hearing. Any questions of staff are to be directed through council. Each person will have the opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak and before we hear from the audience. Is there a staff report?
All right, good evening. We go. There we go. All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Betsy Dunbar, Transit Manager for the City of Ellensburg. So, Washington State requires all public agencies to submit a 6-year transit development plan annually. And the state has a checklist of required elements, and our plan includes all the required elements. And tonight's presentation is just a quick overview of the plan, highlighting some of our accomplishments and plan goals. And also just want to make a note that the capital and operating expenses included in the transit development plan are estimates and are subject to change. So we work locally with the 4-county community transportation planning team to identify challenges and strategies, and then those challenges and strategies will then be incorporated into the Quadco RTPO Human Services Transportation Plan, which will then be incorporated in the Washington Transportation Plan. This alignment will position us to pursue additional grant funding opportunities. So our ADA transition plan identifies non-compliant bus stops, which we then upgrade to remove the barriers and to ensure equal access for all. And in 2025, we completed 17 ADA improvements, including 14 landing pads and 6 new bus shelters. This year, 2 of our major projects includes making Cora Street and University Avenue and the Fish Food Bank ADA accessible. We also plan to add a bus shelter at the Fish Food Bank. So Ellensburg Central Transit operates fixed route service daily from 6 6:15 a.m. or 6:55 a.m. to 8:15 p.m. We also offer paratransit service for those passengers who are unable to access the fixed routes service due to a disability. And the Cabulance service operates independently 24/7 to provide non-emergency medical transportation to and from contracted facilities. All Ellensburg Central Transit services are fare-free, and they operate within the city limits of Ellensburg. Ellensburg Central Transit also contributes match funds for the Hope Source Dial-A-Ride service and their Kittitas County Connector service. We also give operating support to the Yakima-Ellensburg commuter service. So benefits of public transit, I could go on this topic, but I won't. But public transit definitely enhances safety and promotes accessibility and social equity. I love these pictures, how it improves quality of life. It supports local economies. We actually are bringing passengers to downtown and to our stores, and it fosters sustainability. It's better to have 14 people on one vehicle than 14 cars with one passenger each. And then we give access to really important resources. Our core values and strategic priorities guide us in all that we do. We believe in trust, safety, reliability, equity, and sustainability. And all of these enable our community members to meet their needs and participate in all that Ellensburg has to offer. Ellensburg Central Transit technology. We are continually working to make trip planning and riding the bus more convenient through technology. Our interactive website allows passengers to plan their trips and also to see when their bus will arrive. You can click on any of the colored lines that you want and see when your bus will arrive. The same thing, you can trip plan and see where your bus is on your cell phone. We have live operations that first thing I do every morning is log in and see that count all the buses and make sure they're running, and we can see where they are and if they're on time. GPS playback really is a great tool when investigating complaints or accidents. On-time performance lets us know if we're early, on time, or late. And run times keeps us, our schedules running correctly. And that actually takes the algorithm of the buses and hones in on the times that we should have on our schedules. Last year, we had our early trips were 2%, which is below our standard, and our late trips were 7.5%, which is just a tad over, but it does not take into consideration detours or delays in service, and so we think that we're definitely on time there, with an overall time of 90.5%. Which gives us a gold star again this year. We also last year introduced Simplified Transit, where we can input one-time alert. We can even plan them ahead of schedule, even for the whole year for holidays. And those automatically go to our social media platforms, our rider apps, and our website. So that's been a really positive addition to our technology. And then we also, riders can subscribe for free to get alerts to their phones for the routes that they use or the bus stops that they frequent. So it's been a really, so far our average is about 18 new subscriptions each month, so it's been a great success there. Marketing and surveys. So hot off the press there, that first picture is our rodeo ad. Your ride to the rodeo starts here. Hop on and let us do the driving. I think that's what, let us do the driving. These people that are on the bus I was there with them, and it was pretty awesome. They had so much fun riding the bus, as you can see, and it was heartwarming. I will say that, it was heartwarming. And then every year we walk we have the bus in the Labor Day Parade, and thanks to Councilmember Miller that he's always there helping us. And so we handed out Ellensburg Central Transit Frisbees, and then I go to a lot of events on the CWU campus talking about the bus and teaching people to ride the bus. Touch a Truck, again, one of our favorite activities. Little kids love the bus. It's hard to get them off the bus. We handed out these activity books, Youth on the Move in Ellensburg, activities to help you use public transit safely. And that was a big hit. And then we always have surveys on board, and our contractor gives those to me every quarter. And I just picked 4 off the top to bring and read. I don't even know what they say. Fingers crossed, they're all good. This one says, I love the bus. It's a lifesaver. I'm 81 and no car. Wow, that's a good one. This one says, drivers are kind, helpful, and friendly. Wonderful service, and I'm grateful for it. This one says, 0 to improve. It's already great. This one says, I am amazed Ellensburg has such an accommodating bus service. Your drivers are awesome, kind, and helpful. So, yay, those are all really good. So moving on, have to mention the vote, right? So we had a 65.3% supermajority, and we couldn't have done it without so many people helping us in the community. And we also successfully launched 3 RFPs for fixed route, paratransit, and cabulance. So that was great as well. Which leads us to Rural Transit Day, which for me, it's a survey day, and I enjoy riding the bus. Rode the bus all day, and I do ask for feedback on certain things and ask if they have any ideas to make the service better, but I always ask why they ride. And so this lady, she says that she has been riding the bus since it started in 2017, and she believes that she was one of the very first riders in the system. And she told me several times that she wants the bus to go to Grocery Outlet, because back in 2017 it did. So we'll look into that. She mainly rides the bus to medical appointments and grocery shopping, and she's grateful for the bus, especially because it's free, and she likes and appreciates the drivers. This gentleman, he rides the bus 20 to 25 times a week. He goes to work, he goes shopping, he goes to recreation places, and to visit friends. He was very, very nice guy. This beautiful lady moved away from Ellensburg, or lived in Ellensburg for 54 years, and then moved to California, and then recently moved back. But her life is different now because she has no car and is now 100% dependent on the bus. She uses the bus for shopping, medical appointments, going to the library, and visiting friends. She's very inspirational in that she has taken it upon herself to teach people how to ride the bus. And I'm like, you are like my sidekick. That is great. And she says she loves making new friends on the bus. she too has a sincere appreciation for the drivers. And so I thought, well, we'll give the driver a picture this year. Every survey respondent consistently praised the friendliness and helpfulness of the bus operators. And I really appreciate them. And with that, I thank you for your time and all your support. And
Actually,
happy to.
we can't do questions now. We're in a public hearing,
Okay.
so we'll come back to
Okay.
you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Does anybody from the audience wish to make comments on this matter? Nobody online. And you don't have anything to add, correct, Betsy? Council, do you have any questions of the staff or public? Okay, the public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may begin its discussion and deliberations in this manner.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the 2026 to 2031 Transit Development Plan with the 2025 annual report as attached,
Second.
or in substantially similar form. Sorry.
Motion second to adopt the 2026 to 2031 Transit Development Plan and accept the 2025 annual report. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 9A, page 95 in the packet. This is ordinance 4992. This would constitute second reading and potential adoption of the Urban Forestry Code repeal and replace of Chapter 4.36, street trees, and there will be an opportunity for public comment.
Just the red
Okay.
dot, the stop share. Are you trying to look something up?
No,
Or
I
did
just
this? This one. Sorry, thank you.
Perfect. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I'm Erin McGowan, the Water Storm Program Coordinator. Before you tonight is the second reading of ordinance number 4992, which proposes the repeal and replacement of Chapter 4.36, street trees of the Ellensburg City Code. This project has progressed through several milestones. October 21st, 2024, City Council authorized the signing of the 2024 Community Forestry Assistant Grant Agreement, which is administered through the Washington State Department of Natural Resources, their Urban and Community Forestry Program. January 6th, 2025, Council authorized a professional service agreement with Dudek to assist with our Greater Urban Forest Management Project, which includes the tree code update. On July 6th, 2026, staff provided a study session for council with an update on the urban forest management project that highlighted the proposed changes to the tree code. And finally, council approved the first reading of this ordinance on July 20th, 2026. The proposed ordinance repeals and replaces the existing street tree code, which was originally adopted in 1978. This includes the renaming of the chapter from street trees to urban forestry, which reflects a broader scope that includes trees in parks, other city-owned properties, and street trees. The key updates to the ordinance include adding a purpose and value statement recognizing the environmental, economic, and public health benefits of trees, updating definitions and requirements to align with current urban forestry best management practices, establishing tree protection requirements during construction, clarifying maintenance responsibilities between the city and adjacent property owners, introducing tools for cost recovery, tree replacement, and an in lieu of fee option when tree replacement is not feasible, and finally updating permit appeals and establishing clear penalties. This proposed code has undergone extensive review by city staff, the Urban Forest Working Group, the city attorney, outside legal counsel, and the Environmental Commission, which provided a favorable recommendation for adoption at their June 10th meeting. Staff also completed significant public outreach efforts, including attending community events, having direct conversations with residents, and we had a community survey. Feedback showed strong support for urban forestry, with 91% of respondents indicating they support trees and would like to see more of them. Following adoption, staff will move forward with updates to the street tree chapter of the Public Works Development Standards through an administrative hearing. These updates will support the procedural process and code implementation. Overall, the proposed urban forestry code provides a clear, more consistent, and flexible framework to help the city manage, protect, and expand its urban forest. Staff recommends that council move to approve the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 4992, the repeal and replacement of chapter 4.36, street trees of the Ellensburg City Code.
Council,
Aye.
questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Hearing none. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Nobody online? Council, can we get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, move to conduct the second reading and adoption of ordinance 4992, repealing and replacing chapter 4.36, street trees of the Ellensburg City Code.
Second.
We have a motion second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4992 relating to urban forestry, repealing and replacing chapter 4.36 and replacing it with 4.36 urban forestry. Discussion. Hearing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Beauchamp?
Yes.
Goodloe?
Yes.
Lowquist?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
Palmer?
Yes.
Elliott?
Yes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, relating to urban forestry, repealing and replacing Chapter 4.36 of the Ellensburg City Code with a new chapter entitled 4.36 Urban Forestry.
Thank you. Item 11A, page 107, this is the Transit Strategic Plan.
We have a replacement, I think.
What's that?
We have a replacement motion from one that's.
Oh, yeah, I got one.
Yeah, yeah.
Josh, he doesn't want you touching the computer.
Too late.
Thank you. Hey, good evening again. Betsy Dunbar, Transit Manager for the City of Ellensburg. And this is our 5-year transit strategic plan. And the plan was created to help guide our decisions now and in the future. This is basic agenda, summary of our service, strategic plan, summary, vision, core values, strategic priorities, and financial framework. So just a quick summary. We know that the City of Ellensburg, CWU, WashDOT, and Hope Source work together to bring public transit to Ellensburg. They first created a transit development plan and then a Ellensburg Transportation Benefit District. In 2017, voters passed a levy for 0.2% sales and use tax that would expire every 10 years. And then 2019 through 25 experienced a lot of growth. New buses, new logos, new wraps, and the service went from 2 routes to 6, 4 bus shelters to 19, with a bus stop total of 81. Since 2017, ridership increased 56%, and in 2025, We renewed the 0.2% to never expire and ensuring that public transit is a permanent service in Ellensburg. So the overarching theme based on the interviews and surveys and the project members were that Ellensburg Central Transit meets the needs of the community. The service is free and accessible. Drivers are friendly and helpful. Signage at bus stops is confusing for some. Requests for earlier and later times of operation for a few routes, and increased frequency and expansion to more areas in Ellensburg. Additional bus stops and bus shelters were also requested. And just a note that half of those surveys were not Ellensburg Central Transit riders. So our vision is to ensure that all community members can fully participate in Ellensburg life. And these two here, they're actually, I found out they were boyfriend and girlfriend. It was really fun watching them ride the bus together. So core values. Our core values are really to oversee public and use public resources efficiently and remove barriers to ensure equal access to public transportation. We value rider feedback. We adapt to the community's changing needs, and we build a supportive and safe infrastructure. And we're committed to focusing on financial sustainability, service improvements, fleet modernization, infrastructure, and community engagement. Financial operating framework, we strive to maintain a minimum fund balance, apply for WashDOT operating grant funding, and prioritize projects by need and available funding. And any questions if you have them?
Council, questions of staff?
What's the difference between the replacement that was on our desk and what was in the
Well,
packet?
funny you should ask. So, we've had the 6-year TIP, 6-year development plan, and we have the 5-year transit strategic plan, but in our head, we put in 6-year transit strategic plan, so we wanted that to be updated.
Okay. That's a very small thing.
I know,
questions?
it is very small, but it was really good. I was like, we got to have that changed.
Thank you, and nice job on the two presentations. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak? Nobody online? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to accept the Ellensburg Central Transit 2026 to 2030 Transit Strategic Plan as attached or in substantially similar form.
Second.
Motion second to accept the 2026 to 2030 Ellensburg, or Central Transit Strategic Plan as presented or in substantially similar form. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 11B, comprehensive plan. This is the final draft of the land use chapter. There will be an opportunity for public comment, and this is page 139.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Stacy Henderson, Planning Manager with the City of Ellensburg. Thank you for having me today. I am here to present the updated and proposed land use chapter associated with our periodic update work for discussion and informational purposes. Some of this will be a little bit of a recap just because I wanted to go over all of the work that went into the land use part of, it's a pretty substantial part of the periodic update and led to a lot of the building blocks for other aspects that will be presented today and later on at future council meetings. So as a reminder, with the periodic update, We are considering city planning for the next 20 years, so until 2046. A big part of the periodic update work is planning for any population growth, job needs, development needs, and housing needs to ensure that our city has the capacity to adequately adjust and accommodate as we move forward and look to 2046. In accordance with the GMA, all Kittitas County jurisdictions are required to demonstrate that they have sufficient land capacity to accommodate the projected 2046 housing needs and job growth based on the Washington Office and Financial Management countywide forecasts. Kittitas County established population, housing, and employment growth targets for all cities within the county using the OFM forecasts, and the Department of Commerce's Housing for All planning tool, looks like they call it HAPT, for this planning horizon using 2020 baseline. So I just wanted to kind of go over where some of these numbers went because it influenced some of the things that are in the land use chapter. Ellensburg must plan for a total of 25,631 residents by 2046, an increase of 4,834 from the baseline of 2020 baseline of 20,797. HAPT, the Commerce Housing for All planning tool, takes into account household size and future vacancy rates needed to ensure a healthy housing market and housing needed to accommodate homeless and cost-burdened residents. This translates to a housing target of 3,012 new units between 2020 and 2046. The county also established a jobs target based on the existing jobs to housing ratio of 0.90. This results in a target of 2,710 net new jobs for 2020 to 2046. Lily Fry will be up after me to discuss housing in more depth. And at the next council meeting on August 17th, our Arts and Economic Manager will be here to discuss the economic development chapter in more depth as well. But I did want to go over where some of those numbers came from because they also influence the land use. These are important baselines that ensured we were all planning cohesively looking forward. Those look kind of small, sorry. I can go into depth on these in a minute, but that's the critical area map, and then this is another one. I'll try to, I can provide copies of these, and they're also in the land capacity analysis in your packets. One of the first steps of this update involved refining the city's parcel layer to calculate the total amount of developable land with capacity for development over the 20-year horizon. Kittitas County Assessor parcel data was collected from the county's GIS hub and used to conduct this analysis with our consultant. In order to understand what is developable, the project team looked at things like pending developments. Per the county's methodology, parcels with pipeline development should be removed so as to not double county parcels in the land capacity analysis. Also, the state set the baseline for the housing and jobs targets at 2020. So any development which has occurred since 2020 was also counted towards meeting the target already. That's counted there. Excluded parcels in this analysis and excluded parcels and undevelopable land. This included removing publicly owned and tax exempt parcels from consideration. And then critical areas, we also considered steep slopes, streams, wetlands, floodways, and critical area buffers per the county methodology as they create undevelopable conditions on properties. So like I said in your analysis, we analyzed, there's I think 6 or so different streams and then wetlands and floodplain and things that impact development. So we considered that. And then this one reflects vacant or underutilized commercial. We kind of looked at which ones were residential, commercial, and all of that. So really great maps in there if you want to take a look at them. Let's see. The land capacity analysis begins on page 131 of your packet and covers a detailed breakdown of the gross developable acres by zone. And it was presented to council several months ago, so if you have any follow-up questions, we would be happy to try to address them. But not much has changed since we did present it. There were a lot more in-depth and technical aspects to this analysis, but it was an important building block to the periodic update process regarding land use capacity. I wanted to provide a high-level overview of the work that occurred to give you an idea of the information and considerations used for this update. The land capacity analysis shows the overall results of the housing and jobs capacity analysis based on this work. Pending units that have been developed since 2020 or in the pipeline are indicated in green here. The land capacity for housing and jobs as calculated above is displayed in blue. The ADU capacity is shown in yellow. And then under the assumptions described above or described just now, Ellensburg total housing capacity is 5,882 units. And employment capacity seems to be estimated at 6,920 jobs. The targets set by the county are highlighted in the dashed orange boxes. So in total, it appeared with our analysis that Ellensburg has an estimated sufficient capacity to accommodate its housing and job targets, although the next step in the required analysis is to break down the housing units by potential income levels that they can serve. That's another layer of what we had to do in this update. That shows a deficit at lower income bands as described in the land capacity analysis. So although overall we have the capacity for housing, we didn't have it when we break it down by the income levels we're required to accommodate for. So as shown in this figure, Ellensburg has sufficient capacity for housing, serving households earning 80% of the AMI and above, but deficient of land capacity to serve households earning under 88% AMI for the 2020 to 2046 planning horizon. Therefore, and I think Lily Fry will be going into a little more depth on that, but I just wanted to cover it because it's applicable to what we're looking at here. Therefore, according to the Commerce Guidance and the GMA, the city needed to make some zoning and/or regulatory changes to increase capacity for housing that can serve these income bands and adopt them concurrently with this comprehensive plan update. So we did go over this a few months ago when we presented the LCA. To address this deficit, staff has curated 6 proposed zoning changes to be adopted concurrently with this update. These are the same as presented to council earlier this year, in addition to having been presented to the Affordable Housing Commission and the Planning Commission as well. The initial proposed zoning changes have not changed from when you heard them previously. These have been lost my place. These have been presented to and made available to the public through commission meetings, and at the recent open house, they were on a big poster board and discussed, available for discussion, as well as the land capacity analysis being provided in the council packet, and it will be up online as well for the public to review. These rezones don't mean that the parcel will definitely become multifamily housing project. It just means that the rezone allows more multifamily type development options in addition to what's already available for property owners to do on their property. Part of this process was creating the capacity and the opportunity, but it doesn't mean that all of these will just become housing. The rezones don't include the removal of land entitlements, so the idea has been to expand possible uses for property owners, but not change what they already can do with their property. So Utilizing a lot of the mixed-use zoning, we were able to kind of include more multifamily capacity while still not changing their ability to do other residential densities or even commercial development as well. So just a quick recap before we move on, since we have already been over this. Area 1 is a large parcel classified as vacant through the analysis that we did. It's currently zoned residential suburban, and staff is proposing to rezone to neighborhood commercial mixed use, which will allow for a wider variety of housing types, including multifamily, as well as commercial development on the parcel. Using the NCMU assumptions covered in the methodology, this rezone will increase the multifamily capacity by 887 units. Areas 2, 3, and 4, sorry, this map is a little small, but this is in your packet in the land capacity analysis. So to give you an idea, there's, 2, 3, and 4 right there. These are 3 sets of parcels currently zoned commercial highway. In these areas, multifamily is already allowed as a conditional use, but the CH zone has not seen multifamily development in recent years. Rather than changing development regulations in the entire CH zone, staff, because there's an intention as to why it is that zone, and housing doesn't necessarily belong everywhere. So staff selected 3 targeted areas to change the zoning to a mixed-use designation in order to provide opportunity for by-right multifamily developments in areas which have more potential for dense mixed-use development based on their proximity to employment opportunities and transit. Some of the appeal of this to staff was that some of the recent projects creating, more accessible pathways and walkways with the sidewalk and the project improvement that just happened on University, and their proximity to downtown. So Area 2 is proposed as a rezone to Central Commercial 2, as it's closer to downtown, and 3 and 4 are proposed to be regional center mixed use for an additional capacity of 674 units. And then 5 and 6.
Can we ask questions now or wait?
Good.
Yeah?
Where, on 3 and 4, where is the proposed purchase for floodplain? Isn't it at that intersection of, am I not seeing it right?
We are, I do believe it was, we are making an adjustment for that because we weren't aware that that was being purchased for floodplain use, and so that does obviously slightly impact the capacity. I believe it's one of these parcels.
It's a portion of that, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 4, parcel 4.
So-
3? Of 3.
Yes, part of 3.
Oh, part of 3.
So is it, so you're just adjusting the numbers, you're not adjusting the zone to exclude the, so it's kind of upzoning it, but we also want it to be open. So I guess it seems like it should not be available for commercial development if we want it to stay
I
open.
believe, so yeah, this map was made, that's a good catch. This map was made before that property, so I believe the intention now is to remove it from the Area 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
So with that change, that'll reduce the 1713 number, capacity number?
Slightly, yes.
Slightly, but
Yes.
still adequate for what we need.
Yes, with these changes, we are over our capacity so we had a little bit of wiggle room. We're trying to overplan because, again, it doesn't guarantee housing is built, so trying to not overdo, but create some wiggle room there.
And one more question. These are zone changes initiated by the city, not reliant on property owners
Correct.
asking for them?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, these were areas that we targeted and brought to the Affordable Housing and Planning Commission and you guys based on what we know about wanting to create, like this area, which I'm about to talk about, is becoming more higher density of housing, just based on recent projects, and it's very accessible to the university. So staff kind of did the analysis there with our local knowledge and proposed ideas of parcels that would be a good fit for keeping what they can do, but maybe opening it up to higher capacity if the property owner wants to.
And I would just mention, it's one of the reasons we're doing an EIS this year, an environmental impact statement, to address changes that might happen with zoning and also the regulatory environment through the changes to the comp plan.
Thanks.
Yes. So 5 and 6 are RL and RS zoning, so residential low and residential suburban zoning. They're located adjacent to higher density zoning. These were being planned for rezoning to neighborhood central mixed use to complement the neighboring areas and provide opportunities for small scale neighborhood commercial use in this area of the city, which lacks many commercial services. This change will add 152 units of multifamily housing capacity. Oops, that was too far. There you go. So to shift gears here, another aspect of the land use planning that went into the updates in this chapter and the periodic update planning in general include the adequate provisions checklist that we did. Under the Growth Management Act, jurisdictions are required to make adequate provisions for existing and projected housing needs for all economic segments of the community. Our final adopted plan will include an appendix that reviews the adequate provisions items as required by Commerce. This list covers process obstacles, development regulations, and for example here it's the development regulations, but there's several different sections to this list of items that staff needed to review and kind of see how our city does it and if it's a barrier or not. Staff poured through this list, and in the appendix, you will find the columns listing the barriers, a list of if they are likely affecting housing production in Ellensburg, explained with notes, and brainstormed and included actions needed to address the barriers. So the example I provided didn't have any yeses here, but as staff went through this list, which will be provided as an appendix, if it did say yes, then we added analysis here of why it's perceived as a barrier in Ellensburg, and then actions needed to address the barrier. So we've done a lot of preemptive planning and brainstorming on that front. Lily may go into more depth as this is largely housing related, but some of the items that included a yes response will result in proposed code updates at the end of this year. Oh, that's really small. I had a lot of text to share with you all today. So next, I wanted to cover, in the proposed chapter, you'll see the future land use designation conversion chart. So the comp plan designates future land use categories, and these are kind of the more broad categories of how we envision land to be used in certain areas. And then the land development code designates zoning categories, which are more specific. And those are governed by our code and ordinances. Included in the land use chapter is the conversion table. This shows the future land use designations based on comprehensive plan, future visioning and planning. Upon thorough review, staff has proposed a cleanup of this table. So the one in the chapter is the cleaned up version that we're proposing, but I wanted to go over a few of the changes we made so you're aware of them. There's clear overlap and redundancy with a number of the future land use designations. and allowed zoning, and to make this easier to use for developers and the community, we needed to make some changes. First, one of them is that we're proposing to remove blended residential neighborhood, as there was very clear overlap with this with future land use and the other residential future land use. So these are kind of some of, as you can see, what was in here is largely also in residential neighborhood already. And so they're really, and we also used the map when we looked at these to see where blended residential neighborhood is and how it's been used. And the ones that we targeted, there aren't very many areas designated with that category, and so therefore switching it to a similar category with all the same zoning options wasn't a big change and may help with cohesiveness in the future. So how this works is if it's designated residential neighborhood, then property owners can choose to rezone to any of these listed zones. So that's kind of how this is used by developers in town. Something else that we noticed was that manufactured home park zoning is not listed in any of these future land use designations. And so therefore that, it probably was just an oversight, but it restricts our city to only have that zoning where it already exists. It's not an option until we put it in this. So we did add that to residential neighborhood. So there's residential, mixed use, and commercial future land use designations similar to zoning. We also are proposing to remove the neighborhood mixed use future land use designation, as this was another one that wasn't used on the map very often, or in very many places. And so to be able to cohesively kind of blend it into one that is used more often makes the map more understandable and easier to follow. As you can see, there was a lot of overlap with RM and RH and RO, which is residential office. So residential zones and transition zones was kind of the intention of this, which very much overlapped with these already, depending on where they are. And then again, we added some manufactured home park. Does anyone have any questions on this before I do the second half of the chart?
So the neighborhood mixed use will become neighborhood, urban neighborhood?
For the
on
most
the map.
part, yes. We
Oh,
went through
not
them.
always.
I have the map
Okay.
up on a slide that's coming right up, and we did go through and make sure that it made sense for every part of neighborhood mixed use to become urban neighborhood. So I think for the most part they did, but there might have been a few places where it made more sense to be community mixed use as well.
Could I ask a question on that? So I was just noticing the NCMU, when you zoomed in there, when you go up to the urban, that's neighborhood, wait, I'm sorry, I saw it a second ago.
Oh,
There it is, a neighborhood center, commercial mixed use, right there in the middle,
yeah,
NCMU. And you go to the bottom row and you got community mixed use, the NCMU becomes neighborhood center. So they have the same acronym, but they have a different title. See what I mean? The bottom, the very last zoning
I
item.
think that might be a typo.
Okay, okay. If
Thank
so,
you for
then-
catching that.
Well, that would be great. That'd be great. So I just
That
thought.
would be very confusing to have two that were almost the same name, so I'm going to note that.
Okay, I thought I was imagining it, so thank you.
No, you're not. Thank you for catching that. Okay. So the second half of this, let's see. We also are proposing to remove industrial residential, because that's a very conflicting name. It was used in two places that we could find in town. And so one of them is next to where Winco is right now. It actually is currently a commercial or a county property that may possibly be annexed, but that's not happening yet, so it's not in the city limits yet. But its future land use designation is industrial residential. So we are redesignating that as just light industrial. And then there was another one, let me just show you real quick. Here we go. So this is our current map, and as you can see with the new proposed map, it's just a lot more cohesive, and it helps make sense of some things. So up here was another industrial residential, and it is by a lot of residential areas, so we went neighborhood residential with that one and decided to eliminate that future land use. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm having challenges today. And then the last proposal change of this chart is to remove the mixed business park. One thought from staff was that light industrial, industrial zoning really should be industrial zoning. And we have a lot of great mixed-use zoning options and future land use designations that accommodate the same intention of the mixed business park. So to simplify and clean up the chart, I don't believe that was actually used maybe in 1 or 2 locations in town. So it just seemed underutilized, and through our research and double checking the uses of everything and possible zoning, the same thing could be achieved with redesignations. So does anyone have any questions on these? Okay. So a big change, well, not a big change, but let's see. So here, the residential neighborhood, it was a mix of residential neighborhood and urban neighborhood, so we kind of split the difference there between downtown and neighborhood. But it really, we kept with what is already there and the spirit of what's already developed, if there is development there. The one residential industrial parcel here, we are proposing to be light industrial now. The one up there, as I said, residential. There was this was the mixed business park up here. And as staff researched it, we couldn't find a whole lot of use of where that possibly came from. And so to keep it compatible with residential that's already up there seemed more reasonable. So just to quickly go over the goals that changed in the chapter. To take a lead from housing changes that you'll see. One item in goal 1 was to review and revise the residential density bonus program. And we are proposing to remove that and instead have programs that encourage removing barriers and updating development regulations to essentially achieve the same goals without having to have a density bonus program. So that was some collaboration there with housing.
I was going to point out that on page 154, and that's a draft, but it looks like you're missing the program 1 call out, just ahead of the italicized text, upper
okay.
under policy A.
Thank you. Goal 2, a lot of it was just kind of verbiage updates, but there's a lot more encouragement of connectivity to open spaces, transportation, that kind of thing. I know you heard from transportation a few meetings ago, and they have their active transportation plans. So We really collaborated on where we're proposing new zoning, where they could also incorporate new transportation and cohesive things like that. There was a program 4 under Goal 2 about corridor plans. In talking with the Public Works and the Planning Commission, we couldn't find a whole lot of information on that. And so through a lot of discussion, this has been kind of reworded to complement Public Works' safety corridor plans that they have, to just encourage the thoughtful planning along corridors, because it is important. There was already a parking study that's happened, so that program has been removed and rewritten to encourage building upon the parking study to develop just more connectivity with a variety of transit options and transportation options. So that's been updated there instead of just focusing on parking. And I think that was it for what I had to say. Thanks for hanging in there.
Questions? Or sit down? Thank you. Anybody in the audience? Okay. We will move to item 11C, page 191, and this is a continuation comprehensive plan, final draft of the housing chapter. There will be an opportunity for public comment.
And I guess I would make a clarification, these are final-ish drafts of the chapters. Yeah.
Ish.
Doesn't look quite as nice as on an agenda, though, final-ish. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lily Fry, Housing Program Manager. And thank you for taking the time to review the housing element draft this evening. This presentation reflects work over the past year and a lot of effort from staff, consultants, commissioners, and the public. We're looking forward to your feedback. So as Stacy alluded to, based on House Bill 1220, which made changes to the Growth Management Act, there were several new housing-related requirements for this cycle. As Stacy shared, jurisdictions are required to plan for housing by income band, which includes identifying the housing types that serve each band. And that's actually based on local data for those prices. This legislation also created a new requirement to analyze racially disparate impacts in housing, which we'll go through together tonight, and then require jurisdictions to make adequate provisions for the existing and projected needs of all economic segments of the community, which considers barriers to types of housing for all income bands and supportive housing types. So if we start with the housing element, here's an outline of the contents. The element updates the relevant census and related data, which indicates some changes from the last comp plan and the housing action plan when our housing needs data was last detailed. Similar to other elements, goals, policies, and programs follow with action items that we've updated based on the work we've completed over the past several years. Public outreach and feedback that has contributed to the housing element includes significant interest in the housing and neighborhoods category of our penny polls. People indicated more support for more varied kinds of housing, especially middle housing and ADUs. 346 residents responded to a survey on housing, sharing their views and experiences on housing market satisfaction, displacement, and discrimination, as well as widespread feedback that housing is too expensive. The SCJ consultant team also conducted a stakeholder interview panel with local housing developers and providers. A couple of graphics link most closely with the goals and policies that follow, though there's a whole lot more in your draft element. Similar to the Housing Action Plan needs assessment, comparing the number of people in households in Ellensburg, there are a lot more 1- and 2-person households than there are 1- and 2-bedroom housing units that could likely be more affordable for these smaller households. And of course, Ellensburg has a surplus of 3-bedroom homes that persists relative to 3-bedroom households. So there's an opportunity to create more variety in housing and likely an appetite for some of those smaller and potentially more affordable units. This chart appears in the racially disparate impacts memo, but it compares the number of households at each income level to the number of rental units available. So Ellensburg has about 900 more households under 30% AMI than units affordable to these households. In contrast, there's a surplus of rental units affordable at the 50 to 80% AMI levels compared to the households with these incomes, which may indicate that residents are renting homes at higher rents than they can afford, contributing to our housing cost burden of 40% of Ellensburg households. There are additional demographic and market details in the housing chapter draft, including declining affordability of homeownership that inform the housing goal and policy revisions. When we look at a red line of the housing goals, the three high-level goals remain very similar. Firstly, strengthening the vitality of existing neighborhoods. Secondly, encouraging a variety of housing types to meet varied housing needs. And thirdly, supporting a variety of housing opportunities for people with different special housing needs. These remain consistent with the city's housing action plan, which promotes housing stock variety and expansion of income-restricted affordable housing, as well as building more housing to generally meet housing needs. These wording changes to these goals remove preserve and protect style language that can be interpreted as exclusive of new housing types and residents, and expands the range of special housing needs identified in Goal 3 to be more consistent with the kinds of projects that we can support through our affordable housing funds. Taking each goal in turn to look at policy changes, under Goal H1, this draft updates policy wording to emphasize that clear and consistent regulation and reduce language like appropriate that is subject to differing interpretations. While retaining connections between neighborhoods, this removes a transportation-related policy from the housing chapter. Under Goal H2, the policies remain quite similar, with wording changes to accommodate different potential solutions for emergency housing, shelter, and permanent supportive housing. There is a new policy recommended by the Planning Commission to focus on workforce housing. And under Goal H3, the only change is to streamline wording. There were some additional changes to the specific policies to reflect our progress since the last comp plan, but I haven't detailed those on slides here. They are available in your packet. Similarly, for action items, the development regulation changes are designed to remove barriers to middle and multifamily housing and coincide with comp plan adoption, though we will have to see how those barrier removal efforts work over time and if additional barriers are identified. New actions suggested by the Planning Commission include supporting partnerships and innovation for housing and technical support to developers and property owners where possible. I'll move to the racially disparate impacts memo next. Are there questions or feedback before I transition?
I've got a couple comments on text, but I think it'd be better to get through all the other details. I can come back if
We're going
that's
to kind of
okay.
switch to another.
I have a couple, if it's okay. So on 210, talks about mixed-use housing at the downtown and the interchanges. The program H1B1 says throughout the city, and is there an intent to limit mixed-use housing to the interchanges in downtown? Or just the narrative in the chapter doesn't really match the goal, and just my concern is getting in a walkable community, you need those commercial nodes to be able to be accessible to most of the neighborhoods, and that is not the case in Ellensburg in the North End. And so the focus, if you focus mixed use at the interchanges and downtown, we're missing an opportunity to make that kind of environment in our North End that would allow people to get a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread, or go to their neighborhood cafe, and there's a food desert in the north end and all of that. So just.
Okay,
if
let
you
me
might-
make sure I've got the right wording spot. So as Stacy just went over, we are looking at some mixed-use rezoning in the northern part of town. So that is the goal. And there are also commercial uses that are possible in some of our residential zones in addition. So I just want to make sure that the wording reflects that you were highlighting.
So on page 210, it's the last bullet point above what does success look like, and it's mixed-use housing. So maybe I'm not reading it correctly. Well, except it's Ellensburg encourages creative and innovative uses on commercial and mixed-use land to encourage housing supply. Mixing housing and commercial can enhance the vitality of commercial areas by encouraging foot traffic, et cetera. Over time, areas of downtown and areas of the South Interchange and West Freeway interchanges could become distinct mixed-use neighborhoods. And I guess I'm objecting to the last sentence.
I think I have a different packet, so I need to get the right page reference because I'm still not.
Oh.
I haven't marked it. Yeah, we'll definitely follow up to get that.
Yeah, I noticed that, I mean, your action items does not match my action items.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Don't know about that.
I had a couple of texts. I want to point these out. I don't want to get bogged down in these, but under the homelessness, on page 196 in our packet, homelessness and unhoused population, I understand what it's saying, and it describes the pit counts in 2025 and 26.
Mm-hmm.
My familiarity with the pit count is it's conducted in January, I believe, and that's, I guess my question is, I would assume from this that when it's talking about the number of people who are sheltered, it's including our cold weather shelter.
Yes.
So my general observation is it's creating the impression that we're taking care of our unsheltered people overall. The reality is we're really only taking care of them during the winter. So I think it's important to make that distinction, because if we were to do a pit count in July, it would be different than, the ratios would be different. That's all I'm saying.
So noting that our cold weather shelter is seasonal.
Well, noting that our cold weather shelter is presenting these numbers, but we don't have that shelter option available year-round.
There are a couple of other shelter options in our community that
Okay.
would be reflected here, but yes.
Might be good to highlight that then. That's great. And then also over on 199, it's the subsidized housing section. The paragraph that is below the table, just above the next section, talks a lot about the Habitat for Humanity project and the program, which I think is great. It's sort of, the chapter as it presents in the table, it summarizes the existing inventory of subsidized housing. This is on page 198, 199 in our packet. I'm sorry, that would be 49 and 50 in the actual chapter.
Okay.
I guess what I noticed about that is that on the one hand, we're documenting what we have, which is, I think, appropriate. And that tells us we have 699 units of subsidized housing.
Yes.
The paragraph down below also talks about projects that are in the pipeline, which is helpful, interesting, and all that, but it's not comprehensive in the sense that I wondered if we're going to go to the trouble of talking about projects that are in the pipeline or that may be built or in the process of being built, then I think we should include the Hope Source Pathways project, because we've got, 78 units that are going to come online, which will bump our existing capacity by more than 10%. So I think if we're going to we're sort of deviating a little bit from the documentation element to talking about what's happening. Seems like we should be consistent on that. Maybe it's somewhere else. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly, but I think it'd be helpful to explain that, or take the whole paragraph out. I mean, it's one or the other. I think it should be.
Absolutely.
Hey, there's good news on the horizon. You know what I mean? So that's all I had.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So one more kind of follow-up to that. On page 58 of the chapter, 206 in our packet, the table, as I read it, shows there is no existing permanent supported housing in the community. We need 417 somehow.
I think there's one unit.
Oh, is that, okay, that's the one, okay.
Oh, okay.
It's just not enough to make a yellow line. Okay, so none of these that David just read off on page 49 are permanent supported housing, apparently? Or maybe one of them is, one unit?
So there's one current unit. There could be pipeline units, but they would not be reflected here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought some of those were supported, but apparently not.
Or technically counted at the time that so this would be 2020 versus if anything's been created from 26, because this is our baseline. I don't think that would be reflected here, yeah. Thank you. I'll get those updated, and I don't know what's going on with my packet. All right. Moving on to our racially disparate impact memo, or Appendix C. So Commerce provided guidance for some of the elements that should be included as part of this analysis. This memo includes historical context, analysis of demographic changes, incomes and cost burden, exclusion in housing, and displacement risk, and finally, an equity evaluation of the comp plan, existing comp plan goals and policies. We've just gone through some of the changes that resulted from that, so those are a little bit backwards, but here we are. The Commerce guidance includes an engagement checklist and recommendations. For this review, a working group helped suggest some outreach opportunities. The Historical Museum provided materials for the context section. I've mentioned the resident survey on housing experiences. We reached out to nonprofits to distribute the survey and provide feedback, though this was limited. We took drafts to the AAEE, Affordable Housing and Planning Commissions, and gathered discrimination claim data from the Human Rights Commission and used Commerce data for this displacement risk mapping. Key findings include a slight increase in the non-white population over the past 5 years, a shortage of housing affordable to low-income populations, as you've heard from me and others for years, that results in about 40% of our residents being cost burdened. Renters are generally the most cost burdened and or more cost burdened than homeowners, and white households have the highest rate of home ownership. Black and African American households in our data are particularly cost burdened. Much of the city has high indicators for recent or potential displacement, which can encourage us to consider what we can do to support affordable homeownership opportunities. And finally, a goal and policy evaluation identified opportunities for improvement. So this chart uses the HUD's Comprehensive Housing Affordability, or CHAS strategy data, which is our best race disaggregated data that we have available, but it also has a significant margin of error, especially compared with small population sizes. It shows that Asian and Pacific Islanders have lower levels of cost burden compared to white populations, and higher level of cost burden among our Hispanic and Latino populations of any race, and Black or African American residents. Any 0 or 100% figures in this chart are unlikely to be accurate, but this data does indicate racial disparities in housing in Ellensburg. Additional figures in the memo include more detail on demographic changes, including demographic risk mapping, displacement risk mapping, and the location of the housing developments across the city. And there are pipeline projects depicted on that map of affordable housing developments in this section. The final piece of the RDI memo is an evaluation of housing goals and policies from an equity perspective. The Commerce framework suggests that a policy may either address racially disparate impacts or be supportive, that it may be approaching in that it helps us meet our housing needs but doesn't directly address racially disparate impacts, displacement or exclusion, or be challenging in the way that it gets in between our goals on housing equity. And so in the next 2 slides, I've focused on the challenging policies that we identified for edits through this process, though there are others that are in that approaching category that we've also made some edits on. In these first examples, preserving and protecting neighborhood character has been reworded to ensure that planning allows for new housing types and residents. Neighborhood character can be exclusionary, so this new wording emphasizes neighborhood vitality instead. We also want to move away from wording that can have different different interpretations, such as appropriate. And then on this slide, we see that policies emphasized a separation between densities to move to a separation between use types, so between commercial and residential instead of between more dense residential and less dense residential, as we expect to see compatible residential development alongside lower density residential. Again, an emphasis on neighborhood character is unclear, and high quality design is the kind of wording that we're looking to address. And finally, we've adjusted our regulations for supportive housing types to permit these types of housing outright instead of as a conditional use in certain zones following Commerce's guidance. As mentioned earlier, these changes are already incorporated in the housing element that we talked about, but I just want to pause here and see if there's other feedback or questions on the racially disparate impact section. And my last piece for tonight follows up on Stacy's mention earlier. We have this new adequate provisions analysis, which will now be Appendix G to the comp plan. It includes the detailed staff review with commission feedback on remaining barriers to housing types like middle, multifamily, and supportive housing types, as well as ADUs. For this analysis, any identified barriers require that we make updates to our development regulations alongside the comp plan adoption, which you can expect to see at an upcoming council meeting. And most of these barriers were identified in our middle housing section, with some of those paralleled in multifamily. Recent Commerce guidance also asks us to estimate the cost and detail the funding streams that are available to support the cost of affordable housing development in line with our projected needs. While we have adopted several funding sources and are using them to develop housing currently, to subsidize all of the estimated low-income housing units we anticipate would not be possible, but we've included those estimates in this section. And then finally, the next steps are to incorporate any final feedback from you and the public, to review development regulations changes, and then to have the housing element and appendices go through the approval process by Planning Commission and come back to you. So this is an informational item and no action is requested at this meeting, but any other additional questions or feedback are welcome.
Council, questions of staff?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience? Okay, thank you. We will move on to item 11D, which is the selection or appointment of members of the Community Results Team, which would be an ad hoc citizen advisory committee for the 2027-2028 budget development process. There will be an opportunity for public comment. This is page 252 in the packet.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Heidi Barron, Sternaway City Manager. You have before you a recommendation from staff, and actually on the dais, we have some additional applications. I'll go through those with you. As a reminder, this is an ad hoc committee that will meet a number of times over the next month and a half. And it's part of our biennial budget development. When we launched into the budget development this year, we committed to doing a priority-based budget to provide more transparency, opportunities for community input. And you started out your year with a budget retreat, which went over the details of this new budget process. And we have had a lot of work internally since to reformat our budget in bite-sized pieces that are easier to understand. Our staff look forward to working with a committee. And at a previous meeting, you also adopted your strategic priorities, and the work of this committee will be evaluating the programs and the changes to budget proposals that come in against your priorities. And this is how we'll help build the budget. And we did bring an appointment process to council in early July, which you approved. We released an announcement and received 5 applications applications, and those were included in the packet. Since we had opened up the position and our target was 7 applications, we did reopen the application and had a deadline of noon today. Since that time, we did realize that Ms. Berry, which was one of the original applications, was an urban growth area resident, so that would disqualify Ms. Berry from participation. So in your packet, you have Stephen Renke, John Sinclair, Steve Townsend, and Chris Whitsett. Since that time, we did receive 3 additional applications, and you have those on the dais. And one is Christine Steinkoenig, Nancy Smith, and Reed Waite. And our staff recommend appointment of all 7 applicants. We had 1 applicant that has some challenges with the schedule, but I believe we can make that work. And we'll do our best to make this an interesting, informative, educational, and helpful process for those participating and for our staff.
Council, questions of staff? Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Council.
Mr. Mayor, move to appoint members to serve on the community results team for the 2027-28 biennial budget development, as proposed.
I'll lead them.
Second.
So we have a motion second to appoint Christine Steinkoenig,
That's correct.
Steve Townsend, Reed Waite, Chris Whitsett, Steve Renke, John Sinclair, and Nancy Smith to the community results team. Discussion.
Thank you to everyone who stepped up to serve.
Yep.
It's a time commitment, but condensed.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Two will vote aye, opposed. That motion passes, thank you. The public comment portion of the meeting is done. We'll do manager's report, council members report. We do have an executive session after that. So we'll start with the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Heidi Barron, Cernaway City Manager. In addition to what is in the packet, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. The city did just release today the AAEE grants, and so those applications are available through the end of August. We have, it's all on the grants page for the city, and the applications are for 2026 projects, and they're due by the end of August. A reminder also that the 19th of August is our employee picnic at lunchtime, so we'll make sure everybody, you all are invited to attend as well, and that is at the city shop. Just want to special thank you to staff. The work that you approved tonight has been a number of years in the making, and I just want to remind folks our comprehensive plan is all hands on deck this year. Our budget is a tremendous amount of work for staff across the organization, but 2 things past the finish line tonight. One is the urban forestry plan, which is a number of years of work and really great work by our staff as well as consultants and community teams. And then also the transit strategic plan. That's been about a year in the making and lots of outreach, lots of good dialogue and discussion trying to set our transit system up for a successful future. So thank you to staff and thank you for all the participants. One final note, I guess 2 final notes. The county did pass the public facilities district, and so to create a public facilities district countywide. So Ellensburg, we have the population center over 40%, so the city will be responsible for appointing 2 people to that seat. So we have a draft policy that's in a resolution form that we'll bring to you next meeting. I'll make sure everybody gets that in advance in case you have changes or recommendations prior to it getting to the dais here for you. And then one more reminder, National Night Out tomorrow night, Veterans Memorial Park. It should be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Any questions of the manager? Hearing none, we'll start with council member reports. Councilmember Miller.
Pretty light. Attended the LEFT meeting on the 22nd, and also same day happened to stop in at the comprehensive plan open house that was held downtown, and it seemed to be well attended and well staffed. So got a lot of good information out of that. So that's all I have.
Councilman Palmer.
Affordable housing, we don't have a meeting for the beginning of August, so we do have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission on August 27th. Law and Justice, we meet on August 19th. Solid Waste was recapped last month with the new transfer station being open. Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife, that board meeting is tomorrow.
Thank you.
Wednesday, sorry.
Wednesday, yeah, I was gonna say,
Sorry,
wait.
didn't mean to scare you, Nancy.
Delano, are you going?
I will not be able to make it.
Okay.
I just had some issues, so, yeah. I'm gonna do it remote.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned, I actually got to visit our new transfer station over the weekend.
Oh,
And I just realized that Ellensburg has a new wind tunnel. So if anybody needs to test a new airplane without taking a runway, tow it in there, and on a good day, you can fly right out of there.
Councilmember Beauchamp?
Everything is coming up, so I do not have one.
Councilmember Goodlaw?
Yeah, I also attended the comp plan open house. The Affordable Housing Committee of the county had a special meeting with the Developmental Disabilities Board last week. Had a great discussion about pathways for them to be thinking about how they can advocate for and develop some housing for the population of clients that they have that live with their parents who are aging. It was a great meeting, and I'm glad we did it, and I'm looking forward to working with DDEC on that. The Affordable Housing Committee had their regular meeting today, and we continue to work on the plan for how we're going to help the implementation of the new 5-year plan. So all my other meetings are next week. I do have a meeting Wednesday afternoon for the advisory committee, special advisory committee to discuss some of the goals and policies of the AEE Commission and placement in the comprehensive plan. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a good discussion, I think.
Thank you. Councilmember Lundquist?
like Delano mentioned, the Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board meeting is Wednesday. It is the annual meeting, and so they're doing a tour in the Toppenish area, and the nation, Yakima Nation's hosting. And those are open to everyone. If anyone would like to join me, I did plan on going down. That's it.
Just of note, so the Developmental Disabilities Group did meet with the Affordable Housing Commission last week. Lily attended to represent the city, and that amongst 4 primary issues, transportation, housing probably being the biggest one, employment, recreation continues to be a challenge for that particular community. I appreciate the excused absence at the last meeting. I was in the community of Kittitas, which I didn't know existed. And we came very close to losing the community of Hooper, which I did know existed, but I didn't know what its history was. The fire behavior that we're seeing, the smoke that we're seeing is the new normal. My guess is that will happen with increasing frequency for the balance of my life. And if we want to get serious about turning it around, we got to change a whole bunch of things. So far, Kittitas County has been lucky. We have not hosted a severe fire, but what's going on in Nispelem, Chelan County, Spokane County is a fraction of what's going on in Oregon and a fraction of what Utah has already seen. And my guess is we're 6 to 8 weeks away from the end of fire season. So it's going to get worse in all likelihood. Sorry for that. Just speaking of which, saw some social media traffic. People were concerned. The 911 center got overwhelmed with about 90 calls for a very small brush fire on I-90. Sometimes we receive 200 calls for a single event. This one we received about 90, and people were very concerned because the calls weren't answered in 3 rings, which is, above our standard. We normally get them in 2 or less. But you do the math, 90 people try to call and have 3-minute conversations with dispatchers, and there's 2 people on duty, and we have radio traffic. Guess what? We're not going to answer all the phone calls. Everybody got called back within a few minutes. But anyway, just understand how the system works. So Behavioral Health Court graduation is Thursday. I've been going to these. They're really cool. We're going to Springwood Ranch as a small contingency on Friday to look at the overall plan. And finally, what got put out in the paper, I think, was actually very well done, that talked about what's going on with EMS transfers, the movement of patients between facilities, particularly outside the county. 600 to 700 times a year, we send people to Seattle, Spokane, Wenatchee, Yakima, the east side of King County, and for services that just simply aren't available at a critical access hospital. What happened was there was a vote that was actually 9-2, not 9-7. It was 9-2 in favor to give the hospital the opportunity to apply for an additional license so they can potentially bring in a provider, because both of the public providers have decided this is not work they want to do or feel like they can do effectively anymore. So that's actually what happened. I think that was largely reported accurately. We are moving to an executive session, and I'll read the thing here. RCW 4230-110-1I, legal counsel representing the agency to discuss potential litigation. Do we expect action?
10 minutes, no action.
10 minutes, no action, other than to adjourn when we come back.
It's after a long meeting.
What did the,
Didn't even get a chance to
I
say.
haven't received any more information about the Springwood.
Gretchen was organizing, I thought it was meet here at 3:30, but then I saw today.
It's 3.
It's 3 o'clock.
We got to be there at 3:40.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I think we need to be here at 3.
3.
So it's going to be a late evening thing, or?
4 to 7.
Oh, okay.
Don't have the seat that knocks, sorry. 2, 3. That's all we need. The best 3 are here. One more. Who's coming in?
Nancy.
Throw some money on that. Let me see. Prediction market. Oh, Nancy.
There we go.
You didn't say which Nancy, though.
No, I didn't.
But you can also.
Care.
Thank you.